Comedy at the Carlson hosting 3 comedians tonight with names that you are going to know. 2 of them are with us this morning. Marc Price has been coming to Rochester for years now. You probably know him from Family Ties. And we also this morning have comedian Camilla Cleese, the daughter of John Cleese. Welcome to both of you. Good morning.
Thank you.
Listen, I know mornings are tough. They're not easy, right?
Yeah, I just told you how mine runs. So.
I've grown to cope. It used to be tough when I was young and would drink all night. Now, I'm an old man. I wake up early.
I get that.
Not a problem.
I'm old. I go to bed, well, I mean, on this shift, I go to bed so early that I'm up so early, but you just get tired.
Well, I'm on California time, too.
That's difficult.
Well, so are you, so that's not an excuse.
Yeah.
But, yeah,
I'll accept it as an excuse.
I just told you I made coffee at 5:45, and then I sat down to drink the coffee on the couch, and I woke up at 6:45 with it all over my lap. And
that's what starts your day.
It happens.
This is such a cool show because you both come from comedic entertainment families. Your father, John Cleese, your dad was in broadcasting early on, 30s, 40s, 50s, right?
Oh, yeah, so most of the folks watching don't know my dad by name, like everybody knows John Cleese. But yeah, he was a famous comedian back in the day.
Yeah.
Our other partner in crime, Mindy Rickles, Don Rickles' daughter. Don used to work with my dad back in the, and guys like Don Rickles were kids compared to my dad. That's how old my dad was.
Yeah. There's got to be a bond between you guys, too, then, because being the children of famous people who have done this, too, what's that bond like between you two?
well, we know it's an interesting childhood. Like, it certainly isn't. Like, you don't know it's not normal until you're an adult and you hear how other people grew up and, like, you know, that their dad wasn't always in a dress or like a bat costume or a nun. Like, just every one of my childhood photos, he's dressed like a cop or a priest. Like, it's so strange looking back, but like at the time that was
life.
That was my normal.
Yeah.
My dad became a stand-up comedian. He was a mimic and in movies and stuff, but he was known most of his career as a stand-up comic. And I followed in his footsteps. I like to say we're both poor decision makers. He couldn't have taught me real estate.
Yeah, right?
And the big difference between me and these 2 others is my inheritance, which doesn't exist. So.
Oh, come on, I don't have one.
You don't have an inheritance.
Do you know how many times he's been married?
So that cuts out that for you too. Okay.
I mean, yeah, I doubt that.
Still, you grew up the daughter of a celebrity.
I did.
Yes, I'll be in my guest house.
Sort of.
If you need me.
Family Ties was big, though.
I mean,
growing up in the 80s, my younger sister's named Mallory. It came from Family Ties.
Wow. You're one of the Mallory kids.
Yeah.
They're out there.
They are out there.
They considered calling you Skippy, but that didn't...
I did not get Skippy. I got Matt instead.
Matt? That's a departure.
Yeah, right.
So, but yeah, Rochester has been my favorite place. I got to tell you, this was the first city that I ever headlined in, which for a comic, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it was 36 years ago.
What keeps you coming back?
Well, the people, the audiences, that's the #1 thing.
Yeah.
My good friends here in town, a couple of the best radio DJs, Scott Spezzano and Brother Weeze. And a good friend of mine in Rochester here who sadly is no longer with us. And he's one of the nicest guys, and I know everybody who knows him loves him, and that's Chuck Perry, and we miss Chuck very much. And this trip is... it's sadly lacking his presence.
Yeah, it sounds like you've established a lot of relationships here over the years. Camilla, what's it like for you touring and going city to city and also kind of creating your own unique brand of comedy separate from your dad?
Well, it's funny, I tour with him and then like with other comics, I generally just feature for people, but it's like opposite ends of the spectrum because I go with my dad and we stay at really nice hotels and then I sleep on the floor.
She comes out with me. Then she comes down the road with me and we're at the Red Roof Inn.
Our hotel is great here. Like, this is by far.
No, they take great care of us at the Carlson. Let's be very clear.
They have been amazing. But I've slept on like the floor. There's some hotels that are so bad I've slept in my car just because I didn't want to get like, you know,
cooties,
bed bugs or something. Yeah, like
welcome to the life as a comic on the road.
It's kind of fun to have that dichotomy, and also like when I tour with my dad, I'm well aware I'm just an accessory. Like, I usually interview him. I don't do stand-up. Although I think he wants me to start doing stand-up so he doesn't have to do as much stuff.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about your family lives and the show coming up as well. We're going to take a quick break and have much more right after this. Stay with us. All right, 7:48. Welcome back. Look at the forecast for you. Nicer day on tap than yesterday when we saw all that rain moving through. Temperatures rising to the mid-50s with some breaks of sunshine. All right, we're continuing our conversation with Marc Price and Camilla Cleese, part of a show at Comedy at the Carlson coming up. Good morning once again to you.
Good morning.
I know it's early. We talked about this coming in from the West Coast. I wanted to talk to you. We talked a little bit about kind of family life, growing up with your father, John Cleese, and talk about going on the road with him. And he wants you to do more stand-up, you were saying.
Well, I think so he can like take a nap or go to the bathroom during the show.
Yeah.
But also because I have a lot of material about him, so it's a fun way to get revenge because he's been doing that to me my entire life.
Yeah.
And it's my first time to actually say things about him. The only unfortunate part is that we do theaters like 2,500, 3,000 seat theaters, and like if I say something kind of funny but mean about him, it's 2,500 people gasping simultaneously. Like they're very protective.
The crowd's behind him, right?
It doesn't matter if what I say is funnier than what he says. Like he wins every time, which gets a little frustrating.
Yeah.
And he throws things at me. Like
Does he really?
The tour manager isn't allowed to put anything hard on the table because he's literally thrown every object. Like he misses generally, but like cause he'll just take something and
other kids
or my note cards or whatever, like, and
their dads teach them how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Did your dad teach you how to do silly walks?
Well, I did do one for a show we did, and I actually had to train for it. Like, it's shockingly hard how flexible you have to be to do that. Plus, I broke my hip and my neck, so it's...
Oh, well, then don't do the silly walks again. I'm sorry, that's not good.
Well, they
apparently it's very dangerous.
He really worked on that walk, and I don't know where he did it, because back then he was living in a tiny apartment, and he's a very large man.
Yeah.
But he put serious effort into that, which I find hilarious. Like, I was actually more concerned when I found out he'd never done drugs, and he wrote all that stuff, than if he had done drugs. It would have
made more sense.
Yeah.
Marc, we've been talking about how this industry has kind of evolved too. You've got social media, you've got TikTok, but there's nothing like the classic stand-up comedian. It is hard work, it is not easy, and comparing it to this day's age of social media, it just doesn't match up, right?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand. What doesn't match up? The
hard work that goes into being a stand-up.
Hard work? You haven't been a stand-up long.
There's no shortcuts, certainly. Like,
right?
It's one of those things even if someone wrote an hour of amazing material for you, you couldn't put a performer, right? Like,
one thing I've learned from my dad about comedy throughout history, because he started in the 30s.
Yeah.
The 30s.
Yeah.
He saw it change so much, and he knows and taught me that it always keeps changing.
Yeah.
He brought me into comedy clubs as they were just beginning in the 70s.
Yeah.
And he pointed me in that direction. And now, we were talking about this yesterday, comedy's at a very interesting time because it's waiting for its next thing.
Yeah.
A comedy club really is our dad's comedy club.
Yeah.
And I think it's an exciting time, really, because I think something's about to bust.
Yeah.
We're going to see something new, something soon. But we're starting it out with this weekend because this is something new, something different.
It's an evolution. All right, so let's talk about this show. I want to dive in. Talk about what people can expect from this show.
Not a refund. That's the first and foremost.
That's a good first answer.
But there's clips of our dads preceding our show.
Okay.
And
they're like 30 seconds. Don't
just
get excited.
A little bit, just a little bit. Just a little something to show that we're offspring from these comedy greats. And of course, everybody knows John Cleese. They all know Don Rickles. Nobody's seen my dad before, so that's why I put the clips in, by the way. I want people to see him.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool, like we're working on the bill together again, you know?
It's funny. It's the first time I've actually done a show in the U.S. where, like, people know that that's my dad, because I never explicitly say it in my act, even though I talk about him, just because of that whole, like, people getting defensive of him thing. So it's a different experience, like, to have, I'm not sure everyone knows who he is, but, like, to be talking about him and have people know.
Yeah.
Like, in England, I'm much more careful because I've wound up getting disowned a few times for jokes. Because, journalists a lot of times, no offense, like, you're not.
No offense taken. He's not a journalist.
No, you're way too fun. Like, because they take everything literally.
Yeah.
Like, they ran an article in the Daily Mail where the headline, I do a joke where I'm like, I got exciting news. We have a new child in the family, my new stepmother. And like somehow that
and then
turned
it becomes
into
a headline
yeah,
of you
Camilla
targeting.
Cleese brand's stepmother is child, and I'm like, well, when you put it like that, like. It's not the same, you know, you just ruined my joke, and they made it sound like I'm yelling these insults on a corner, not doing stand-up. Like, they fail to mention it's comedy. And then my, you know, whoever reads it and gets pissed off.
We're coming up against a hard break, so we're going to go to commercial. But the show coming up when, right?
It's tonight. It's tomorrow.
Yes.
It's Comedy at the Carlson.
Awesome.
It's funny kids of famous comedians.
2 shows each night.
So good to have you guys in this morning.
For
Thank you so much for waking up early.
Mindy, Rickles.